Hello, welcome to Bible study where we're looking at Psalms at the moment. I apologise for those of you that came looking on Tuesday. It was a busy day. By the time I got to the end of the day, I was like, whoops, I haven't done that. So, anyway, we're back again here on Thursday and be looking today at Psalm 35. Well, I say that we're going to be looking at a little bit of Psalm 35. As I read through this, um, there's a lot of what David's doing where he's fighting. I think that's probably the the best word. He's in a difficult situation. He's clearly got people against him on all sides, and it's in that scenario that part of what this psalm is about is he's crying out to God and trying to build a case that God should answer. But in the middle of that, you get these lines, which I think is where I want to focus today. That just rather than focus on the enemy, they declare in the middle of the trouble, in the middle of the challenge, in the middle of clearly a time where he was being pursued. Just to illustrate this, it says at the beginning, "Contend, Lord, with those who contend against me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take up shield and armor, and rise and come to my aid. Brandish spear and javelin against those that pursue me. Say to me, I am your salvation." Yeah, and that's the background of this psalm. But in that, you get these lines that I think are key, and they're our learning point, if you like. And our challenge is when we're facing difficult circumstances, when we're struggling, when we talk to people who are struggling, are we able to bring to the fore that despite the situation, despite maybe even feeling that God hasn't answered a prayer or helped us get out of something, are we still in a place that is worshipping God? Like in verse 9 of this psalm, it says, "Then my soul will rejoice in the Lord and delight in his salvation." Now that one more comes from the background, hey, when God answers me, I'll be able to rejoice. When God answers me. But let's take this whole journey that, if we're in a tight spot, we may not immediately come to that, good place, if you like, in our thoughts and in our prayers, but we can journey towards it. And I think that's what David's doing here. And yeah, it's like at the end, and this is where I want to focus. At the end of the psalm, he's saying, "The Lord be exalted, who delights in the well-being of his servant. My tongue will proclaim your righteousness, your praises all day long." And for us, as we go through life, as we go through the ups and downs, are we able to get to a place where, and be in that place where, in the highlights of life, the great moments of life, we're celebrating and thanking God, but in those moments that are difficult, distressing, those aspects of life maybe we'd rather avoid, that are we still in that place able to proclaim the goodness of God? Are we still in that place able to exalt him? Are we still in that place able to worship? Are we still in that place? David's saying, "My tongue will proclaim your righteousness, your praises all day long." What are we like in those moments? And I think it's in those difficult moments that the core of who we are comes out. The depth and the deepest place of that internal challenge and what's going on emerges. So, I don't know where you're at today. Maybe life is flying, which is great. Enjoy those times of life being amazing. But maybe you're in a time when there's grief, pain, anxiety, stress, challenge, and that stuff feels a bit overwhelming and difficult to see your way through. It's in that place, and I think that this psalm has that mix of, Lord, get me out of this situation, because again, a theology that says God's brought me bad situations so I can grow and mature is a wrong theology. It's not. It doesn't. That isn't the heart of God towards us. But we live in a fallen world, and difficult and challenging situations do come. But He comes in them firstly to be our to reconcile us to Him. Firstly, He comes to bring us salvation, but in the circumstance, whatever they are, can we find that place, firstly, of praise and go, well, actually, whatever the circumstance, whatever the situation, whatever I face, this is who I am, and I shall praise you. I think some of the most moving moments I've seen over the years is people that have been through traumatic things, through grief and everything else, and in it, they've set their face towards God and said, this is who I am, I'll worship. And I just think that's precious on earth, but I think it's precious in the sight of God. And the second part of this, I think, comes out is what we say. In what we say and how we live, will that reflect righteousness? It's in that moment, I think it's so easy to, throw off restraint and allow, even if it's a neutral place, you get out of gear and you meander. But to have a determination that in the distress, in the confusion, in the unanswered prayer, I'm still going to maintain my righteousness, my holiness. In the place where that important prayer that we've been praying is not answered, or we don't perceive it as being answered, I choose to worship. I choose how I speak. I choose how I hold my attitudes. I choose not to judge. And actually, in the middle of those situations, we can be, without maybe even realizing it, but by holding that standard, we are being refined and renewed on the inside. So David here, he's wrestling with, am I going to die? But he's wrestling with, I've prayed, but God hasn't come through with an answer. That sense, even, that he's trying to do right, and yet the false accusation comes against him. All that stuff, and God feels far away from him, yet he chooses the way of righteousness. And for us, will we choose the way of righteousness? And hold that line, and in those challenging, difficult circumstances, I will praise God, and I will be careful in the way I live. Bless you. Thank you for being with me. Again, sorry about missing out Tuesday. I hope you have a good day and a good weekend. Bless you. Bye for now.